Star Wars, Mario Kart, and the Art of Good Entertainment. I'm Caleb Walton for SeriousWriter.com, and this is Genre Chat. I know it's been a little while since I've had a new podcast come out. Things were pretty busy over the holiday season. As I mentioned in the last video, I did start a new job, so that's been really crazy. But it's really good to be back this year with new content coming out every other week like normal. So the new Star Wars movie, The Rise of Skywalker, came out over the holidays, and I went and saw it. It was incredible. I know some of the reviews were sort of mixed. Some people loved it, some people hated it. It actually got a score of rotten on Rotten Tomatoes, which sort of surprised me because they liked The Last Jedi better, and personally I thought The Last Jedi was my least favorite of the new trilogy. So, but like I say, you can't always depend on what the critics like, because the critics thought The Last Jedi was amazing, and most of the fans thought it was a big disappointment. To me, it wasn't that bad. I rated it sort of like along the lines of the prequels. I sort of liked them, but I didn't really view it as a classic like I did The Rise of Skywalker. So it got me thinking as I was leaving the theater, what is the thing that really made an imprint for this movie on me? Why was I so excited? And all the other people in the theater were practically cheering every other scene in the movie. I mean, I was holding my breath half of the time, and I was like, what is it that made the biggest difference in this movie that I didn't get from the other movies in the new trilogy? And it sort of went back to one of the golden rules of fiction, which is give the reader what they want or something better. And so it's this constant pull with any kind of entertainment, with gaming, with fiction, writing, books, or with movies. It's this constant balance between suspense and anticipation, and then reward and fulfilling that anticipation. Now, of course, you can't always give the reader what they expect, because a big part of fiction is the suspense and the surprise and the shock value that comes from the plot, especially if you're writing thrillers or science fiction, and even sometimes fantasy, mysteries especially. But it's important to make sure that you give the reader either what they wanted going into it, or you give them something even deeper and more enriching than what they expected. So a lot of the ways that this applies to genre is in different genres, readers are going to go into it with certain expectations. With science fiction, a reader is going to want to go into it expecting to see and experience something weird and out of the box and something mind-bending. If they go into a science fiction novel and 50% of the action is romance between the two main characters, they're going to be disappointed. Now, of course, romance is a great element in any genre because it adds depth and emotion and a lot of really amazing conflict that can come out of that. But if the reader doesn't get that mind-bending science fiction quality, then they're going to be disappointed. So that doesn't mean that you need to change your story if you're writing what you think is a science fiction or a fantasy or a suspense, and it turns out to be something different. Go with that, but know how to brand your book and know how to aim the general story toward the specific genre that it truly belongs in. So a good thing that I noticed that The Rise of Skywalker did is they knew who their audience was. Their audience for this last film was not only going to be Star Wars fans that have become Star Wars fans throughout the new series, but also lifelong Star Wars fans like myself, who's been watching Star Wars ever since you were like 6 years old, and people that have been watching it even longer than me that watched it when it originally came out in the 70s. So they made sure to give the fans exactly what they were wanting, and without giving any spoilers in case for whatever weird reason you haven't seen it yet. I mean, it's toward the middle of January. If you haven't seen it, then don't really see how you could be a Star Wars fan. But with the plotline about Emperor Palpatine, with the conclusion of Rey and the relationships between Luke and Leia, and even how the story ended, some of the little things between... Dang it, I don't want to give away spoilers, but there's so much good stuff. Okay, if you have not seen The Rise of Skywalker, do not watch it past this point, because I don't want to spoil any of the stuff for you. There's nothing worse than getting a movie plot spoiled. But I really need to get in depth in some of these plot points to show sort of what I'm talking about. So just like past this point, stop if you have not seen the movie, because I don't want to spoil anything for you. Okay, so the surprise reveal of Rey being Palpatine's granddaughter, that is something that really struck a chord with the previous fans who've always speculated about who is really behind the First Order, and the fans of Ian McDiarmid's performance as Emperor Palpatine were satisfied because that classic character was brought back to the screen. They even used the CGI to bring back Luke and Leia when they were younger, when Luke was training Leia in the Force, and it was stunning. It caught all of the chords of classic Star Wars movies and really gave it a modern tone and a modern flavor, especially with a lot of the effects and the different style that J.J. Abrams brought to it. And of course, the final battle on the Sith planet, that for some reason I can't think of what it was classic. It was Star Wars battles with X-Wing fighters and TIE fighters and Star Destroyers and Sith versus Jedi battles, and it really gave the audience exactly what they were anticipating. We even got Ewoks. Come on, guys. We even got Ewoks in this movie, which there were so many rumors online when the trailers sort of revealed that they were going to be on Endor. Oh my gosh, please have Ewoks. They even gave us a few minutes of Ewoks in the movie. So they gave the audience exactly what they wanted, which is why, in my opinion, that regardless of whatever plot holes or like story flaws that the critics say they saw, the fans gave it a really good rating on most of the movie review websites because it gave them exactly what they wanted going into the film. They wanted an epic, nostalgic conclusion, satisfying conclusion to one of the longest running movie sagas in history. So this, and while of course, if you're a writer, especially if you're just starting out, you don't have 30, 40 years of storylines ahead of time that you have to draw from, but you need to keep in mind what your reader is going to want going into the story, and you need to make sure you satisfy that. There's nothing better than going into a story. I read, and I think I've actually mentioned this on the show before because it was such a good book I can't stop talking about it. Blake Crouch, I believe his name is Blake Crouch, Dark Matter, and I actually just started his new book Recursion. It was incredible. I went into the book expecting a really amazing sci-fi story about the multiverse and interdimensional travel and all kinds of crazy science fiction things. And not only did he give us that, but he gave you something even deeper. He gave you a really incredible story about this man and his family and all of the emotional stuff all the emotional stuff that went on with that, and it really left you satisfied, and it left you wanting more, and it left you sort of in awe of the story that he had woven. So you want to make sure that you give your readers what they want. Now you're probably wondering, what in the world does it have to do with Mario Kart? One thing that I noticed with the new Mario Kart Tour, which some people love, some people hate, I'm addicted to it, and I think it's amazing, but of course there are a lot of things that I wish Nintendo would do differently, which don't really have time to get into all that now. When the game first came out, they had a really good balance between goals and challenges and new courses, and then giving you something back, that little dopamine rush of giving you a coin or a star or rubies or a new cart or a new character or a level up. And it was a really good sort of balance, give and take, between racing a couple of races and completing some challenges, and then you get a star, and then if you collect this many stars, well, then you have to get to unlock these 5 rubies, and then you pull the pipe, and then you get a new character, or you pull the pipe and you don't get a character and you're disappointed, and you try again, and then you get a gold pipe and you get a really awesome character. And it was this really good balance between, oh my goodness, I cannot stop playing this game because I want to see what comes next. So one thing that the game did was balance small rewards with big rewards. Just as in a story, you have to balance like small little pieces of information and pieces of whatever mystery or suspense there is in the story with big reveals. You never want to give too much too soon, and you also don't want to make the reader wait too long to get something, because then they're going to lose patience. And that's another thing that Blake Crouch did in that novel, was he really balanced well revealing key parts of the story and really keeping you interested in cannot wait to see what's on the next page. But also, most of the mysteries weren't even solved in the last couple of chapters. So it's a really hard thing to do, but it's also a very important thing to do to make sure the reader keeps motivated to keep going from the beginning to the end, because they're invested for 400 pages. You want to make sure that they actually get rewarded at the end with that big, amazing climax and those awesome story reveals and tying up all those loose ends at the end. So it's a very intricate dance of characters and plot lines and suspense and emotions, but it can be done, especially if you study the books that are written really, really well. So whether or not you like playing Mario Kart, or whether or not you like certain YouTube channels, or whether or not for some reason you didn't like The Rise of Skywalker, which I did, but I also like the other two movies, so maybe I'm not the best judge, but everyone loves getting what they came into the story for. If you come in for science fiction, you want to have your mind blown with science fiction concepts. If you came in for fantasy, you want some epic duels between wizards and dragons and deep, rich cultural elements of whatever world you've created. If you went into the story for suspense, you want to be on the edge of your seat for a good portion of the book. So keep that in mind when you're brainstorming, when you're writing, when you're editing, to always give the reader what they want, or something better than they wanted, or something even more epic than they could have imagined. Next show, hopefully, is going to be aimed for science fiction, and we're going to be interviewing an author in science fiction. Hopefully I'll have that episode out within the next couple of weeks, but in the meantime, make sure to subscribe to the Serious Writer YouTube channel, and check out SeriousWriter.com for more awesome content. I'm Caleb Walton for Genre Chat, and thanks for watching.